All right, so we're going to try to draw the avian respiration system. So unlike humans and mammals, avians have a rigid lung structure. So I'm going to do my best to draw that. I'm just drawing as straight of a line as possible. Instead of a expandable lung like you and I have, avians have a rigid structure. So what they actually use are air sacs to help um, provide that differential in the pressure to expand and contract their chest. And then that is what allows the flow of air through their lungs. So they're still going to have lungs, but their lung structure is just not expandable as ours. So these are actually their air sacs. So I've got, this is our posterior air sac, and then we're going to have our anterior. Okay, so this is post. And then you should be drawing this in your notebook as well. So, and then we have anterior right here. And then there'll be an actual picture in the PowerPoint, but I want you to be able to see how I'm starting to draw this. Okay. And we use that box structure because that's the actual lung. So not that the lungs look boxy, but it'll help us kind of differentiate that a little bit more. So within here, we kind of want to think about, we have channels in the lung structure, and then this should mimic also the video uh, on our avian ears. So we're kind of using the same type of diagram. Okay, so that's our lung. Now we want to look at the actual flow of the air. So the air for birds is kind of nifty because they have an anterior air sac, they have a posterior air sac. So one needs to contract, and then the other will expand, and vice versa, and then that allows the air to come in. So we have two actual cycles. We have our first cycle, which I'm going to draw in blue. So we have one inspiration that's going to get the air in. Okay, so this first cycle is going to be in the blue color. That draws the air in. It goes all the way into our posterior air sac. Okay, and then it fills into the posterior air sac. Now, in order to get out of the posterior air sac, we need to have an expiration, right? So on that expiration is going to be how we remove that air. So if I continue to follow this inspiration, poop, okay, so this blue is my first inspiration. All right, and then I have my first expiration is going to be over here. This first expiration is what gets your air into the lungs. And it pushes the air into the lungs, into your anterior, or not quite into your anterior air sac yet. So we're just getting from first inspiration gets to the posterior air sac, and then we've got our first expiration, and that's going to get us into the lungs. Okay, so that's our first cycle. Then we have our second inspiration. Our second inspiration is going to take us from the lungs into that anterior air sac. Okay, so now we're in the front of the body. This is why when we talk about too holding birds, even with the chickens, why we're careful not to crush their sternum is because they have no way of really pushing out their chest or their lungs. So you can actually prevent them from breathing pretty easily, because if you're putting pressure on these posterior anterior air sacs, then you can prevent them from breathing. So now they do have more than two. They have 9 air sacs altogether. So they're just they all work together, though. There's the section of posterior, there's a section of anterior as well. So they all work together to make this process happen, and that is the second inspiration. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Now, if you guys want some extra credit, go ahead and shoot me an email and I can get you 2 points extra credit. Just make the subject title extra, and then in the message body, put down something that you're learning on the respiration system of avians. So that's the second inspiration goes into the lungs, and then the second expiration actually expels them out the body. Okay. All right. Miss Leslie will definitely work on her drawing abilities. So we have the second inspiration, second expiration. So this is our second cycle. So the second cycle gets the air from the lungs into the air sac, out the body. The first cycle gets the air into the air sacs, into the lungs. And this is kind of the billow system. So when you ever seen on the cartoons where there's a fire and then they've got boom, 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 whoop, that's my little fire. It's in the little hut, right? And then there's that little thing that they come and they blow on it. Whoop, that's a billow. So this billow system is kind of how that works in the lungs. So we're able to trace that. All right. That is our avian air respiration cycle. And again, these are the lungs. And they don't look like boxes in the body, but it's a way for us to identify that they are rigid structures.